In this video, I really want to talk about the NEKO rig. The NEKO rig has become one of the most dominant lures in bass fishing, and it's kind of done it in almost a little bit more of a quieter way. And I don't know why exactly it's done that, but there's been tournaments that have been dominated with the NEKO rig well before forward-facing sonar, where guys were really keeping it quiet. And the thing about the NEKO rig is whether you are fishing from the bank with no electronics or whether you're fishing from a $100,000 boat with the best electronics in the world, it is a very effective tool at catching fish. Now, I have 3 little tips when it comes to fishing the NEKO that I think help me to catch more fish on it, and in this video, we're gonna talk about that. Now, before we get into it, this video is brought to you by my apparel company, Fin Fishing. I just want to say thank you to everyone who purchased something during the Bassmaster Classic sale. You definitely have to give me a day to finish up getting out some of those orders. And with that being said, right now I'm still running a sale till the end of March. If you buy one of my USA-made sun shirts, one of the only ones made in the US, or a pair of the duck shorts, you will actually get a free Buzzer Rocks Blood Stop formula. So still running this sale till the end of March. I will leave some links down below in the description. Shopping at Fin is truly the best way to help support this channel. I greatly appreciate it. All right, let's talk a little bit about the NEKO rig. We just saw the Bassmaster Classic won in large part because of the angler fishing a NEKO rig. And real quick, before I get into the NEKO rig things, I do want to mention something about the Bassmaster Classic. I do want to ask you guys a question. I actually made a video that I was going to publish on this channel about the Bassmaster Classic as a whole, as far as there's been a lot of negative talk about the Classic. I think I have a little bit different views than maybe a lot of people do when it comes to the Classic. And if you guys are interested in hearing that, let me know down below in the comments and I will publish that tomorrow. If you don't care for it, then I understand that too. We will get on with the tips. All right, speaking of that, let's talk about the NEKO rig. This is such a really, really good technique. And it's a very easy technique. Something that I find super fascinating about a NEKO is the whole, like, everything comes full circle when it comes to a NEKO rig, because I remember listening to, I believe, Ken Duke talk about a statistic that was like, I think it was like before 1991 or 1995, I think like 85% of tournaments were won with a rubber worm. Right? Back when the primary soft plastic was a good old like straight tail or curly tail worm, like 90% of tournaments were nearly won with that. Now, since that time, you've had all the different creations of different things out there, different lures. I mean, think of the chatterbaits and the whopper ploppers and all these lures that have been made in the 2000s. You think of all the different soft plastics that have been developed, you know, baits like beavers that didn't show up until really, I don't know when those showed up, but a lot of different things have come about. But still, to this day, what is one of the best baits to catch fish? A NEKO rig. And if you think about it, the best bass fishing lure probably of all time is a Senko, right? A Senko is just a straight-tailed worm. And for the most part, a NEKO, you use a straight-tailed worm. So I say all that to say that we should know everything we can about a NEKO rig, because at the end of the day, if you need to get a bite, a NEKO rig is one of the best things that you can do to get a bite. Now, let's talk about tip number 1 when it comes to NEKO rigs. I believe that the slower you fish that bait, the better you are, the more fish that you are going to catch. You know, the thing about a NEKO is that, and this actually kind of goes in conjunction with what I'm also going to talk about, was the lighter weight that you can fish that bait, typically the more bites that you get too. So I'm gonna make that into my full tip 1. The slower the slower you fish it, the lighter the weight that you fish it, typically the more bites that you're going to get on it. Now, this can actually be pretty tough for some anglers, including myself. This, to me, is one of the toughest things that I have when it comes to fishing a NEKO rig, because I personally love a drop shot. And the nice thing about a drop shot, I can use a 1/4 ounce, I can use a 3/8 ounce weight, and I can actually fish a drop shot fairly quickly across the bottom, and I can cover a lot of water fairly quickly with a drop shot. But a NEKO rig, sure, you could jam, you know, a bigger weight up into your NEKO rig, which allows that bait to stay on the bottom and allow you to fish it faster. But that is not the way that you get a lot of bites with the NEKO. If you think about it, a NEKO is a true finesse technique. And so if bass are going to bite baits that you are moving quicker through the water column, then they would probably, then you could probably catch them on something more efficient. You could probably catch them on a crankbait, or you could probably catch them on a jackhammer chatterbait, whatever it may be. A NEKO rig is really a great bait at cleaning up, at catching everything that there is to be caught. And one of the best things that you can do, fish it slow and fish a lightweight. And when I say lightweight, a lot of times I'm referring to things that are under 1/8 of an ounce. I know when I first started fishing a NEKO, I fished it on 1/8. I've quickly found that that's pretty heavy for the NEKO rig. And even if you look at the most recent Bassmaster Classic that was won, you know, the way that Easton Fothergill was fishing, it was higher in the water column, and he was using it in conjunction with this forward-facing sonar. And he was using a 1/32 ounce weight, but he also fished a 3/32 more on the bottom. But regardless, what I have found is that the lighter weight that you fish, the slower you fish it, the more bites that you are going to get. Now, this actually brings me to tip number 2 with a NEKO is a NEKO rig is not the best search lure. And we kind of talked about this a little bit. I prefer to use a NEKO rig when I know I'm around some bass. There's one exception, I'll talk about that in a minute, but usually when I get into an area, I'm usually using a lot of fast moving lures. I'm using search lures, jerk baits, top waters, spinner baits, chatter baits, crank baits. I'm using these baits to try and locate groups of fish or areas that have fish. Now, when I want to catch everything that is in that area, I might still use my spinnerbait or chatterbait or jerkbait to follow up. I may even switch over to a different bait, but if I want to catch absolutely everything, throw that NEKO rig. And the best thing about it is that sometimes what I have found a lot in bass fishing is that you tend to catch some of the biggest fish when you get to that area first. Like the first fish that you catch in a school, it seems like are sometimes the biggest fish. But the thing with the NEKO rig is that not only do you catch everything that's there, but sometimes I feel like you trick the biggest fish that has seen all your chatterbaits, that has seen all the jigs in the world. You will trick that fish into eating. And we just saw this a little bit in the Bassmaster Classic. We saw it we saw how that bait can trick a lot of big fish. And so that's the other thing with the NEKO rig. It's not a small fish technique. Like you can catch some absolute giants with the NEKO rig. And so fish it slow, fish a lightweight, move as fast, or don't use it as a search bait. And the last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to a NEKO is that experiment with baits outside of the norm. I never like to overcomplicate things in bass fishing. And I don't think that you necessarily need to do this all the time with the NEKO rig. I think that typically a 6, 7, 8-inch worm, straight-tailed worm is what you can go with on a NEKO. But what you have seen in Japan primarily is a lot of guys that are using different style of baits with a NEKO, where they're using, bigger crawl style baits. Even like beaver style baits. I've seen guys that use more of those like bullgill, more of those bigger, flatter type plastics that look like a bluegill with a NEKO rig. You see this a lot in Japan. And let me just tell you that pretty much any trend that we see that happens in the US typically happens in Japan first. Like it literally is time and time and time again. And you see them doing that a lot in Japan, and I can only imagine that with NEKOs just forever becoming more and more and more popular, that using a different style of plastic with it can just help you to get a few extra bites. Now, if you are not familiar or have not fished a lot of NEKO rigs in the past, I'm not going to suggest you do that up front, because I think that the best thing you can do is fish your standard NEKO, get a lot of bites, get a lot of confidence in it before you start moving out to other things. Now, if you want to see how I go about rigging a NEKO rig, I actually did a full video over on BassFishingHQ. I will leave linked right here. So guys, hope you enjoyed this video. We will talk a little bit more about NEKO rigs as well as how to fish it in suspended water here in the coming future. I really enjoyed it. I see you guys in the next one.